Video games have been creating worlds for us to explore for decades now. Worlds filled with danger, wonder, and adventure. But amid the epic quests and grand battles, developers have recognized something fundamental about the human experience. We need places to return to, places of safety, comfort, and belonging. Places we can call home. What's remarkable is how these virtual homes can evoke genuine emotion despite having no physical reality. We form attachment to digital spaces, develop routines within them, and sometimes even miss them when we're away. This emotional connection doesn't happen by accident. It's crafted through deliberate design choices that tap into our fundamental psychological needs. In this video, we'll explore how different games approach the concept of home, and the techniques they use to transform mere pixels into places of emotional significance. From the hard-won sanctuaries of the Soulsborne series to the childhood bedrooms of Pokemon, we'll examine how games create spaces that transcend their code to become something we genuinely care about. In doing so, we might just discover something about what home really means, both in games and beyond. In the unforgiving worlds of From Software's Soulsborne games, where death awaits around every corner and horrors stalk the ruins of once great civilizations, there exists something miraculous. Places of safety, places of rest, places we might, against all odds, come to call home. After dying repeatedly to the same grotesque monstrosity, the discovery of a bonfire, lantern, or statue marks a profound shift. The music transforms, sometimes to complete silence, sometimes to a gentle melody, creating a moment of exhaled tension that punctuates the relentless difficulty. The Nexus, Firelink Shrine, the Hunter's Dream, Majula. These names transcend their function as mere checkpoints. They become emotional anchors in worlds designed to make the player feel perpetually adrift. For example, Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls. Unlike other areas in the game, Firelink offers a circular open-air sanctuary where light filters through broken architecture. The gentle, melancholic theme that plays in this location stands in stark contrast to the threatening orchestral pieces that accompany boss fights. As NPCs gather here throughout the journey, what was once a desolate ruin gradually transforms into something resembling a community, albeit a fragile one. What renders this design choice remarkable is that from a strictly mechanical perspective, these locations serve primarily utilitarian functions. They're effectively glorified menus where players level up, upgrade equipment, and teleport to other areas. Yet, after hours spent traversing poisonous swamps and crumbling castles, returning to Firelink Shrine evokes an authentic sense of homecoming. Central to this architectural sanctuary is the presence of a tender guide. The maiden in black, the firekeeper, the doll or Melina. These figures represent constancy in worlds of chaos. They speak softly where bosses roar, offer aid where enemies harm, and remain loyal when other NPCs betray. These caretakers of Sanctuary transform mere locations into something that feels like home, a relationship rather than just a place. But in classic From Software form, they recognize this opportunity and use it to subvert players' expectations. Having established these hub areas at home, they strategically violate the sanctuary to profound emotional effect. For instance, Lautrec in Dark Souls or Yurt the Silent Chief in Demon Souls will systematically murder NPCs if left unchecked. And most recently in Elden Ring, and personally, one of the most unnerving experiences I've had in gaming was when Ensha invades the Round Table Hold, supposedly a space of absolute safety, forcing players to defend home against intrusion. These violations serve multiple narrative functions. They reinforce the game's themes of impermanence and decay, suggesting that no sanctuary can remain untouched forever. They heighten emotional investment by converting abstract attachment into concrete gameplay stakes. Perhaps most importantly, they remind us the most fundamental lesson of these games. Complacency leads to death, and true safety is illusory. The emotional connection players form within these spaces isn't artificially manufactured, but genuinely earned through shared hardship. Similar to how real-world attachments to places often materialize through struggles we associate with them, the hub becomes meaningful precisely because of what it represents: temporary respite in a world designed to break the player's spirit. What makes these spaces truly compelling is that these hubs themselves are often broken, ruined places. They don't present idealized homes, but a nuanced reflection of how our concept of home can sometimes function in reality. not as a perfect sanctuary, but simply as the least broken place one can put their head to rest. The journey to becoming a Pokemon master begins at home. Literally. Every Pokemon game opens with the protagonist in their childhood bedroom before stepping out into their hometown. These small, peaceful settlements serve as the foundational cornerstone from which all adventures begin. Each hometown is deliberately designed to be small and navigable, usually containing just a handful of houses, the player's home, and the Pokemon Professor's Lab. This compact design creates immediate familiarity. Within minutes, players know every corner of their virtual hometown. The mother character in Pokemon games serves as a function that transcends mere narrative convenience. In a game where the player character is invariably a child, the mother represents both home and the permission to leave it. The Pokemon Professor serves as the secondary parental figure, representing intellectual guidance rather than emotional nurturing. This parental dynamic is reinforced through the Professor's system of rewards and recognition, which mimics the structure of familial encouragement. As the players capture more Pokemon and fills their Pokedex, the Professor offers increasingly valuable items, evolutionary stones, rare Pokemon, or exclusive equipment. This reward structure mirrors how parents might acknowledge a child's growing responsibility with increased privileges, creating a relationship where achievement is recognized with tangible affirmation. The Professor's evaluation of the Pokedex creates a dynamic reminiscent of report cards or parental assessment. "You've caught 50 different Pokemon, I'm impressed," isn't just feedback, it's validation from an authority figure. This validation carries emotional weight precisely because the Professor is positioned as a mentor whose approval matters, much as a parent's recognition shapes a child's sense of accomplishment. If the mother represents the unconditional support of home, the Professor embodies the developmental guidance that helps the player grow beyond it. What distinguishes Pokemon's approach to home from many other game franchises is how this concept expanded beyond the game itself. The Pokemon anime, which debuted alongside the original games, transformed sparse dialogue and pixelated portraits into fully realized characters with complex emotional lives. Brock is no longer just an 8-bit gym leader, but a lovesick rock trainer with a passion for cooking and breeding. Misty transforms from simple water-type specialist to the temperamental redhead with hidden vulnerability. In the same vein, we see Professor Oak not merely as a quest giver, but as the wise, occasionally absent-minded researcher whose relationship with Ash blends scientific mentorship with gentle grandfatherly guidance. Ash's mother infuses every in-game mother's limited dialogue with her loving, supporting presence, someone who understands her child's need for adventure while maintaining a warm home with Mr. Mime's help. The anime effectively created a powerful retroactive continuity, giving emotional depth to the game's necessarily simplified characters. These enriched perceptions deepened our connection to these virtual hometowns, transforming them from mere starting locations into places populated by characters we genuinely cared about. Unlike the harsh worlds of the Soulsborne series, where home exists as a rare interlude against unrelenting danger, the Pokemon series presents home as the safe starting point from which adventure emanates, and to which the player inevitably returns. This relationship is strengthened through a mechanical feature that appears in nearly every mainline Pokemon game. When the player returns home, their mother heals their Pokemon team. This simple interaction transforms the childhood home from mere scenery into a functional sanctuary, a place of restoration that exists outside the network of Pokemon centers. It's a subtle but powerful reinforcement that home remains a place of care, even as the player's adventure expands to distant regions. What makes returning home in Pokemon particularly poignant is the stark contrast between departure and return. When you first leave, you're a novice with a single low-level starting Pokemon. But when you return, often much later in your journey, you command a team of powerful, evolved companions. Standing in the same house or laboratory with a full team of high-level Pokemon creates a powerful juxtaposition that silently communicates your growth. The unchanged physical space accentuates how much you've changed as a trainer, creating a bittersweet reminder of the distance traveled, both literally and metaphorically. This emotional resonance is amplified by the timing of these homecomings. Unlike games that encourage frequent returns, Pokemon's structure often positions home visits at significant narrative junctures. After acquiring several gym badges, resolving a conflict, or perhaps most consequentially, after defeating the Elite Four. These spaced-out returns make each homecoming more meaningful as the accumulated experiences and achievements since the last visit are substantial. When your mother remarks how much you've grown, or how proud she is, It feels cathartic because genuine progression occurred in the intervening hours of gameplay. The genius of Pokemon's representation of home lies in its simplicity. Without elaborate mechanical systems or narrative complexity, it creates a space that feels authentic precisely because it asks so little of the player. The mother who worries about your adventure, saves your money, and occasionally buys you items represents home not as a complex system, but as an unconditional relationship. One that remains steadfast even as you grow from novice trainer to Pokemon champion. The hometown doesn't evolve elaborate features or transform dramatically. It simply waits, unchanging, creating a meaningful contrast to your own remarkable journey. In this constancy, Pokemon captures something essential about the nature of home. Not merely a location with particular features, but a foundation that provides both the security to venture out and the comfort of knowing there's always something to return to. In stark contrast to the structured narratives of Soulsborne games or the predetermined childhood homes of Pokemon, Minecraft presents players with perhaps the purest expression of home in gaming, a completely blank canvas. When players spawn into a new Minecraft world, they face an expansive, procedurally generated landscape devoid of designated safe zones, quest givers, or narrative signposts. Home isn't given, it must be made. This fundamental shift transforms the concept of home from a narrative device to an emergent property of player agency. Your first night in Minecraft creates an immediate, urgent need for shelter, a desperate scramble for walls and a roof before darkness brings hostile mobs. That initial shelter, often nothing more than a crude dirt hovel or a hollow carved into a hillside, establishes the emotional foundation for what will eventually become home. The contrast between the vulnerability of the first night and the security of even the most basic shelter creates a powerful association that more scripted games can rarely match. What follows is a gradual process of improvement and expansion that mirrors real-world relationships with living spaces. As players gather more resources, their shelters evolve. Wooden walls replace dirt. Glass panes create windows. Doors provide security while maintaining access. Each upgrade reflects not just increased capabilities, but growing emotional investment. Players don't enhance their homes because the game requires it, but because they want to. Because the space has begun to feel like an extension of themselves in the game world. The mechanical systems of Minecraft reinforce this emotional connection in subtle but profound ways. The bed mechanic, which allows players to skip night and reset their spawn point, anchors the concept of home to a specific location. Home becomes literally the place you return to when you die, a mechanical manifestation of emotional refuge. Similarly, storage chests, crafting tables, and furnaces create functional centers of gravity that pull players back to their bases through practical necessity. Perhaps most significantly, Minecraft's day-night cycle creates a rhythm of venturing and returning that cements the emotional significance of home. During daylight hours, players explore and gather resources, and as night approaches, that same world becomes substantially more threatening, creating a natural push to return to safety. This cycle, venturing out and returning home, mimics primal patterns of human behavior, making the concept of home feel intuitive and emotionally resonant. What distinguishes Minecraft's approach to home from other games is the absence of prescribed meaning. The game doesn't tell you where home should be or what it should look like. It simply creates conditions that naturally lead players to establish one. This blank slate allows for remarkable diversity in how players conceptualize home, from utilitarian bunkers focused solely on survival, to elaborate structures that prioritize aesthetic expression over practical concerns. The multiplayer dimension also adds another layer of meaning to Minecraft homes. On servers, bases don't just provide safety from environmental threats, but establish territorial boundaries between players. The act of inviting someone into your Minecraft home carries genuine social weight. It's an extension of trust and vulnerability. Collaborative building creates shared ownership and investment, transforming individual refuges into communal spaces with collective meaning. This combination of necessity, agency, and self-expression makes Minecraft homes unique in gaming. In this way, Minecraft offers possibly the most authentic simulation of home, not because it replicates specific physical structures or cultural ideas of home, but because it recreates the fundamental process through which spaces become meaningful. From the desperate need for first shelter, through gradual improvement and personalization, to eventual emotional attachment that transcends practical concerns. Minecraft homes follow a trajectory that mirrors our real-world relationships with the places we live. The campfire added in later updates serves as the perfect symbol for this process. A simple block that provides light, cooking functionality, and visual comfort. Players don't typically build campfires because they absolutely need them. They build them because something about the warm glow and gently rising smoke signals home in a way that transcends pure mechanics. It's in these small, optional choices that Minecraft reveals its profound understanding of how spaces become emotionally significant, not through narrative declaration or mechanical requirement, but through the accumulated weight of player agency and investment. In the Legend of Zelda series, the concept of home transcends traditional definitions, manifesting not through a single dwelling that Link inhabits, but through the comforting familiarity of recurring elements that span across the franchise's many iterations. Unlike other games where home might be a specific sanctuary or building, Zelda presents home as a collection of familiar touchstones, gameplay mechanics, iconic locations, musical themes, and cultural elements that welcome players back with each new adventure. While Hyrule itself changes dramatically across timelines and reimaginings, these consistent elements create an emotional constant, a sense that, despite new landscapes and stories, players are always returning to a place they know intimately. The geographical consistency of Hyrule creates immediate recognition across games. Hyrule Castle standing proud, Lake Hylia's vast waters, these persistent landmarks serve as tethers across games, creating a sense of recognition despite their evolving appearances. When players glimpse Death Mountain's volcanic peak on the horizon in a new Zelda title, they experience not just spatial orientation within the game world, but a homecoming moment within the franchise's history. These geographical landmarks create a unique sense of comfort despite the differences in each incarnation. Players develop an almost instinctual cognitive map of Hyrule across games, understanding that certain elements will always be in relation to others. This subtle consistency turns exploration into a form of return. Even when discovering a completely redesigned Kakariko village, the feeling is less "I'm somewhere new" and more "I'm somewhere where I belong." Though their appearances and stories change, characters like Impa, Beetle, Tingle, Malon, and the Great Deku maintain consistent personality traits and roles that make each feeling like reuniting with old friends. The Goron's hearty camaraderie, the Zora's elegant formality, these cultural constants create social familiarity that transcends the specific inhabitants players meet in each game. These encounters provide comforting social continuity amid change. Central to Hyrule's identity as home is Princess Zelda herself, not just as a character, but as the embodiment of the kingdom. Her wisdom, courage, and connection to the land's divine history personify Hyrule's essential qualities. When Link fights to save Zelda, he's not merely rescuing a princess, but preserving the soul of the homeland itself. This anthropomorphization of Hyrule through Zelda gives emotional weight to what might otherwise be an abstract quest to save a princess or a kingdom. The entire cyclical nature of the franchise's storytelling, the seemingly eternal conflict between Link, Zelda, and Ganon across different ages, creates a powerful connection through fates intertwined. Though each Link may begin his journey with no memory of previous incarnations, his destined role as Hyrule's protector suggests a connection to the land that transcends individual lifetimes. This implied spiritual revelation adds timeless symbolism to the more immediate gameplay experience of exploring familiar landscapes. Wind Waker perhaps most poignantly demonstrates Hyrule as home through its narrative of a lost homeland. The game opens in a world entirely covered by water, where the kingdom of Hyrule exists only in legends. When Link eventually discovers the submerged kingdom preserved in a bubble beneath the waves, players experience a powerful realization, the recognition of a place they've never actually seen in this game, but immediately know from previous adventures. This sunken Hyrule represents home not as a living space, but a heritage that survives even when the physical homeland is lost. The Legend of Zelda's expansive vision of home is not defined by a single structure or settlement, but by the familiar rhythms and hallmarks that welcome players across generations of games. The distinctive sound of opening a treasure chest, the fairy fountains with their healing waters, the Master Sword waiting in its pedestal, these recurring elements create a powerful sense of continuity even as Hyrule itself is constantly reimagined and transformed. Through this approach, the Zelda series has created a sense of home that transcends any single iteration of Hyrule. When players begin a new Zelda adventure, they experience both the excitement of discovery and the comfort of homecoming. In this way, Hyrule becomes home not just within its games, but across a lifetime of gaming experiences. As we've journeyed through these different virtual homes, a common thread emerges. Each game creates home not by labeling a space as such, but by establishing emotional significance through carefully designed player experiences. In Dark Souls, home is earned through contrast with overwhelming hostility. In Pokemon, it's framed through the narrative of departure and return. In Minecraft, it emerges naturally from player agency and investment. And in The Legend of Zelda, it develops through repeated meaningful interactions with a consistent community. Yet beneath these different approaches lies a shared understanding. Home isn't primarily about location, but about relationship, how we interact with a space and what it comes to represent. Maybe that's why virtual homes can evoke genuine emotion despite having no physical reality. They capture something essential about what home really means, not just shelter or safety, but a place that reflects our journey, holds our history, and provides context for who we are and who we're becoming. We experience more than just game progression. We're participating in the fundamental human experience of cultivating meaningful relationship with place. In an age where many of us spend as much time in digital worlds as physical ones, these virtual homes remind us that home has always been more than mere geography. Perhaps that's the most remarkable achievement of these digital hearts. Not that they successfully simulate physical spaces, but that they capture the emotional essence of what makes a place feel like home, regardless of whether it exists in atoms or in code. And in that recognition lies the beautiful truth that wherever we find comfort, community, and a place to return to, we have found home.